Places. Places. Did you hear that?
Heck yeah!
You are listening to Calling Out Controversy, the new political and economic talk show that's taking over the information station where you'll never know what you'll hear next. It's 88.3 FM, WVCR The Saint. Now let's focus up, because here's Nicole Commisso and Andrew Hecht with this week's topic.
Hey everybody, this is Nicole Commisso.
And I'm Andrew Hecht.
And you are listening to Calling Out Controversy.
You know, it's the number one show at 2 a.m., specifically only in Albany.
So, Andrew, why don't you tell everybody what you did?
So, I got a little antsy, and I decided that we need to talk about freedom. Now, I'm definitely not in the mindset that America is all glorious when it comes to freedom. There's a lot of things that I wish I could do personally here without being judged or prosecuted that I can't, and I'll let you guys decide what you think that might be. Comment on the video what you think. But it's more important to me that there are other countries that seem to be doing just fine, allowing people to do other things that we can't do here. And on top of that, there are things that we do here that other countries aren't capable of doing in their society that I think they need to grow up and get involved in. So we're not the worst by any means, but we're certainly not the best. And so I kind of wanted to do research on this. Is my hypothesis right? So I went ahead and I looked up the CATO Institute's 2017 Freedom Index, and I looked up Freedom House's 2017 results for their studies. And I kind of interviewed a few people on what they might think America's like as fellow citizens of this country. And tonight we're just going to compare them all and talk about them. And,
Talk about it.
We're going to talk a lot about it. And it's all just a good breakdown, a healthy conversation about how free we really are, how free the world really is.
And so just for reference on this survey, Andrew, how many students did you interview?
So originally I did 8. 2 sound bites were corrupted because I am not that good at technical stuff. So you have 6 results going through, but
and they're all Siena students.
Yes, they're all Siena students, and by no means is this an accurate sample of Siena College's opinions.
Right, just a couple of kids, hanging around, and you asked them a couple of questions about freedom.
Yeah, and I made sure to get a good, healthy, diverse group of students. They're going to remain anonymous because we don't want anybody getting uppity about everything here and coming after students. So,
all right, awesome. Let's take a listen.
Yeah, so here it is. Do you believe America is the freest country on earth?
Absolutely not.
No.
No, I do not.
Yes. I do not.
No.
Yes.
Do you believe America leads the world in personal freedom?
Absolutely not.
No. Yes.
I say so, yeah.
Absolutely not. Yes.
No.
Do you believe America leads the world in economic freedom?
No, I do not.
I do not.
Yes.
No.
No. Yes.
Definitely not.
Do you believe America leads the world in human freedom?
Yes.
Yeah.
No.
No. Yes. No.
Again, absolutely not.
Which country do you believe leads the world in personal freedom?
Japan.
Norway.
Canada. Iceland.
Which country do you believe leads the world in economic freedom?
Again, I'd also have to say Japan.
I would say Iceland.
Norway.
We do have, opportunities in America, to get out of, our current, class, middle class, low class, but it's not as easy as it's perceived to be to get out of that class. But I don't know specific countries off the top of my head, but, that's my reasoning.
Switzerland.
Which country do you believe leads the world in human freedom?
Switzerland.
Again, I'd also have to say Japan.
Norway.
Canada.
And which country do you believe is the freest country on earth?
Canada. I'm going to say Iceland again.
Norway.
America.
I don't really have any specific country that comes to mind, but I do know that there's certain aspects of our country that I feel like other countries do better in.
Japan.
So, Nicole, what did you think about that?
So I'm actually kind of surprised. So I guess Andrew will take every question piece by piece and we'll just talk about it.
Yep.
But so the first question was, do you think America is the freest in the world? And so many of the students, nope, absolutely not. And it's just crazy to me. I think only 2 out of the 6 students said yes. And in my personal opinion, I do think America is the freest in the world. And, we're talking about CATO statistics and the what was the other one?
Freedom House.
Freedom House, which I personally don't really like Freedom House because I think they're pretty biased and slanted, which, to me doesn't give good results when you do things like that. But, I'm surprised because it's funny to see students who go to a private college who have so many, I hate to say privileges, but that's our favorite word these days, privileges on the show. But, I feel like so many Americans, including young Americans, who all they see on the news are things like, America is bad and America isn't free and America is racist and bigot and, homophobic and misogynist. And, they really don't see the privileges that it is to be an American. And, we were talking about this earlier. I am not by any means necessary saying that America is perfect 100%, just like you said before when we opened, you don't think America is glorious and perfect. And I don't think, I think it's glorious, but I don't think it's perfect. And, we're talking about how privacy rights are an issue. So what's so amazing about the United States is we have 50 different states that are completely different all in its own, which I think is so incredible.
Yeah.
And I really do think that, we live in New York, Andrew, so we have like no shot when it comes to freedom. But isn't New York's ranked the lowest? It's been ranked the lowest of freedom
by state?
By state. It is.
Them in California.
Yeah, we are the worst. So, in New York, obviously, I have so many issues when it comes to Second Amendment rights and privacy rights and, even creating a small business. That's what I think is what makes America so different is the entrepreneur sect for me, too, because that's obviously something that I want to go into after I graduate. I'm a business major with the entrepreneurship concentration here at Siena. And there is no other place in the world that really has the whole slogan that is, if you don't succeed, try and try again.
So it's nice that you're bringing up all these options, because what I found is that there's two big groups that measure freedom. Freedom House being one, and the Human Freedom Index from CATO. Now, they have different political alliances, which is part of what we want to talk about tonight. And the reason is because CATO is what is considered a libertarian think tank. And what CATO does is they go around the globe and they measure things based off very specific criteria, of which they source hundreds of documents, articles, and other news sources. They look at rules of law in countries. They look at economic standing in countries. And when they do a human freedom index, they print out a 400-page document overlaying, well, more than 400 pages, but it's a 400-page document that overlays every single thing that they got into and how they measured it. They take 2 raw scores, which is one in personal freedom, one in economic freedom, and then they average out those scores to get your human freedom index score. And everything that contributes to that is all part of the mathematical equation. Freedom House, however, if you were to look at the report that they put out, they're putting out a 25-page report. It is liberal from the very first cover,
yes,
which I'm not knocking. If you believe in that, that's fine. But it is, and you can look this up.
It's obviously segue into.
Yeah, so the Freedom in the World 2018 measures the 2018 index.
Right.
And the very first thing you see is a picture of a woman holding a shield, and it says democracy and human rights.
Mm-hmm.
And behind her is all of the major nations that you know and love, Germany, the UK, France, and they are all in knight and shining armor, like battle gear, behind her that are slightly scared looking. But what they did, again, is they had Donald Trump behind the rest of them, sitting on the ground holding a cell phone with a Twitter emoji above his head.
Right.
And
so
he's dropped the American shield on the floor. So like where CATO is just a point blanket, like this is CATO,
facts.
Here's our report. Like, yeah, facts, if you want to call like it's their obviously opinion because it's a libertarian think tank, but it's this is CATO, this is what we do. Here are the reports. Here are hundreds of numbers. Here's hundreds of pages of things that you can look at. And on top of that, then you have Freedom House, where Freedom House is like, we're not pulling punches.
Right.
We're here to tell you America
on
sucks now.
On the very first page of the report, it's that picture that you just described, which it's obviously biased, it's obviously slanted. And me personally, even if, say, I hated Donald Trump so much, which I don't, and I say I hated America so much, which I do not, but say I did, honestly, I wouldn't like that, because I feel like, how much can you trust a source when it's slanted like that? You know what I'm saying? I just don't trust that.
Agreed. It's 100% agreed. So now I want to read a small passage from Freedom House that is about the United States and part of where they see us in decline. So it's actually titled "The United States in Decline." It's literally the third page of the document, and it tells you that the United States is accelerating its withdrawal from the democracy struggle. And they outline a lot of problems that we've had recently in the past administration, but they make it as if this is what freedom is. So they say Freedom House has tracked a slow decline in political rights and civil liberties in the United States for the past 7 years. So it's going into the previous administration as well. Prominent concerns have included the influence of money in politics, legislative dysfunction, and severe inequalities in the criminal justice system. In 2017, however, the deterioration accelerated. The United States lost 3 points on the 100-point scale used by Freedom in the world due to the following: growing evidence of Russian interference in the 2016 election campaign and a lack of action by the Trump administration to prevent a reoccurrence of such meddling. Violations of basic ethical standards by the new administration, including the president's failure to divest himself of the business empire, his hiring of family members as senior advisors, and his appointment of cabinet members and other senior officials despite apparent conflicts of interest. And finally, a reduction in government transparency, including an unusual pattern of false statements by the administration, the president's failure to disclose basic information such as his personal tax data, policy, and other such things that it goes on to talk about. So that is one thing that Freedom House really wants to emphasize. They want to emphasize that, like, we have problems because our administration has problems. Now, their whole slogan is, their methodology focuses more on what life is really like day to day and how free you are on everyday life. Whereas CATO looks at laws and economics and regulations. They look at it more from a overview of what life should be like. So it's a normative study versus a positive study.
I find it incredible that Freedom House, I mean, I would love to look back when Obama was president, or even, George Bush was president and Bill Clinton. Is it the same type of, I hate to say, attack on the administration, or the same type of looking into the administration and blaming it as a whole? Because, I mean, President Donald Trump has not even been president for 4 years yet. So I find it kind of incredible that they're blaming what they perceive as America not being so free just because he's president.
Yeah, and you know what?
Like, that really bothers me, to be honest, because
you're right. You're right.
And with the whole entire Russia scandal, Russia Trump, I mean, we could go into that another day, maybe on another topic. But right now we are going to segue into a break. Thank you guys for listening to Calling Out Controversy. We'll be right back.
And we were talking about freedom, if you couldn't have guessed that. And we have just gone over CATO and Freedom House, compare the two a little bit. So let's really get into the interview. Now, I asked 8 to 10 students. 6 made the cut for the interview we're actually airing, and about 2/3 of people said no, America's not the freest country in the world. When asked what country they think is the freest, it was a variety of answers, the majority of which end up somewhere in Eastern Europe. And when asked, do they think America leads the world in personal freedom, almost everybody said no. When asked, is the world led by America in economic freedom, only a few people said yes, maybe 3. And the human freedom question, which is the average of 2 freedoms, almost everybody said no again.
Right.
So that's what we're working with. Now, I just want to point out that according to a CATO study, the qualifiers are vast and wide in terms of what constitutes personal freedom, what constitutes economic freedom, and we'll get into that in a minute. But just for your personal information, America, judged by CATO, is 28th in personal freedom. We are 6th in economic freedom, and we are 17th in overall human freedom. That puts us very far behind the number one country for human freedom, which is New Zealand. Netherlands is personal freedom, and economic freedom is Hong Kong. So that's where we stand in relation to the top number one power players.
You know what I think, though, Andrew? I think it's really amazing to me how these students say that America is absolutely not the freest in the world. And I think this goes back to, I'd love to see these students that say that they don't think America is free at all go to different countries and see how different it is. Because like I said before, a lot of people, I think, take their American privilege for granted. And I think that we look at things like personal freedom and economic freedom. And I think that, and I think you would agree, that people have a different sense of what that is now. So we have, candidates such as Bernie Sanders, or candidates, he was a presidential candidate, he's a senator, but that, say things like, we don't have any personal freedom or human rights if people aren't owed free health care. And I personally do not agree with that at all. And so we have a place like America where you have the freedom of opportunity, in my opinion, the most freedom of opportunity than any other country. And in America, you are almost, encouraged to fail. I mean, there's a study that shows that an entrepreneur has to fail 4 times until they're successful. And I really do think that that's an important distinction to make with America and other countries, because you have not only the major opportunity to succeed, but the major opportunity to fail, and in order to learn from your mistakes. And I think from a business standpoint, you have a lot of freedoms in America where you don't in other places.
So, I mean, it's interesting you brought that up, because we do lead the world in 2 things that are beneficial, housing and income, but that's averaged out. So there are huge levels of income inequality here, and that's part of what Cato looked at to diminish our score. Not like they're doing it with a grudge, but I mean in general.
Right.
Our rule of law, so how we handle court cases, both civil and criminal, seems to need work, according to Cato. They're also looking at laws and regulations that influence the media, political pressure controlling the media, movement of capital and people. So that's income inequality right there. So these are all things that we don't do well in, that we could improve on. Size of government's another big one. And then there's other things like legal enforcement of contracts. But we have perfect 10s across the board when it comes to association, assembly, and civil society. We have almost perfect 10s when it comes to sound money. We have almost perfect 10s with expression and information, except for the media. So it's not like we're bad.
Yeah. I mean, I don't think so.
Yeah.
I love America.
And so
I'm glad that
it's
you
funny.
brought up income inequality, though, because that's a major thing that a lot of people say, like, well, oh my God, look at, America. We saw that, right? And one of the students said that, you can't get past the middle class in America, which I think is so not true. And I think that, it all comes back to, and we talked about this when it comes to white privilege and male privilege, it all has to do with working hard. And I hate to say that, and it sounds like such a cliche, but honestly, in my opinion, it is so true that in America, you have the opportunity. You're not owed success. And I think that, unfortunately, with a lot of people, including younger generations, and we're seeing it, in my opinion, that, a lot of things seem like it's owed. And, I don't think that freedom comes from getting free things.
So and that's another thing, because Freedom House again talks about what life is actually like on the ground. That's their
So in someone's
their,
opinion, if you don't have health care, if you don't get health care, if you don't get free this, if you aren't guaranteed a job, if you're not guaranteed this and that, then in their opinion, you're not free.
Well, they say it's based off the Universal Declaration of Human Rights adopted by the UN General Assembly of 1948. and they're using that along with obviously liberal tendencies to
Right.
gauge freedom. So I'm
which
just
you
gonna,
could disagree with
Yeah.
if you don't agree with those trends.
which is true. So like I'll ask you, what number do you think Freedom House put America at? If Cato, which seems to be, in my opinion, in your opinion, in sheer fact of data sharing and transparency, the more factual, logical site. If you think that
well,
Cato,
Freedom House has to be bad.
if
gotta
you think
be.
if Cato put us at 17 overall and 28 in personal, 6 in economic, what score would you venture a guess at that Freedom House put America?
70 something.
Wow, you're worse than them. They only put us at 55.
Oh, really?
Yeah, so we're 55.
Well, I was going bad because all they had to do was talk about Trump and how terrible he is.
Most notably, according to Freedom House, we're behind such countries as Croatia, Belize, Latvia, Grenada, St. Kitts and Nevis, Slovakia. Some countries I've honestly not heard of, although
I was going to say, honestly, I think that's all BS.
I know those countries, but there's countries like Mauritius that I didn't even know existed. So I kind of feel bad.
Good. I think what's so important and the major thing that is so distinguishable about America from other countries is that every single person, no matter what race, no matter what gender, no matter who you are, has the equal opportunity right now in this country to do whatever they want and to go ahead and do what they please and try and be successful in the ways that they are, or not be successful and do whatever you want. I personally don't think America is perfect. Of course I don't. If it were up to me, there'd be no IRS, there'd be no taxes. I think that's a major flaw in our system. But there's also abolish the IRS. There's also people that like Bernie Sanders, and I'm sure some of the students that said absolutely not, this is not the freest country ever, would probably want more taxes, which in my opinion, and I think same to you, Andrew, I don't agree with mass taxing on the American people.
Right, and
because the government's taking my money and doing what they want with it, and I think that taxation is theft, to be totally honest. And there are, Bernie Sanders, his whole, giant mystical fairyland, like he likes to praise Denmark. But in Denmark, what a lot of people don't know, the taxes are so heavy. It's like 60% income. So you get taxed 60% of your income.
And America already had a top marginal tax rate score out of 10 of 5. And they had a government consumption of 6.7, transfers and subsidies 6.0, and this is all Cato information. So they're judging them on those qualities too. It's funny because we're able to name all of the things that we think would contribute to what makes things free. And at the same time, somehow you get two different reports. Now, you brought up Denmark, and they got a 2.5 top marginal tax rate out of 10. They have a government consumption of 1.5 out of 10, which means that they're using more taxes and consuming more as a government. Their transfers and subsidies are 4.5, so they're doing really low in those scores. They're tied with us, actually. I'm sorry. They're lower than us on economic freedom, which is taxes. They're higher than us in personal freedom, but they're still ranked above us at 6.
Which, see, that's amazing to me because they're ranked higher in personal freedom, but they tax their people more. So, like I said, I think a lot of it has to do with your opinion on things like that. And honestly, I think the more taxed you are, the less free you are.
And the economic score reflects that. Their personal freedom scores, though, in rule of law, they're beating us horribly. In movement, they have perfect scores. They have perfect scores down the line in expression and information, in identity and relationships. They're beating us in religious freedom, except for legal and regulatory restrictions. They have perfect scores in sound money, just like us.
If you buy a brand new car in Denmark, to register it, there's an 85% tax on a new car.
Which is, again, that's the tax rate where it's
that's ridiculous.
So
really think about that for a second.
Well, that's why, again, I'm saying
it's almost impossible.
It's a contribution of multiple factors that keep them higher than us. If we were to break it down, obviously compare and contrast,
right?
That's what gets it easier. And I would love to do more about human freedom.
Yeah. What I'm trying to say is, in America, you have free choice, and you have a free marketplace of not only ideas but a free marketplace.
Yeah, and you have that in plenty of countries. You have that in plenty of countries.
No, you do have it in plenty of countries. What I'm saying is I think we I think we do it best. I really do. And I think that, there are different opinions on the difference in what it means to be free. And honestly, I think that this is a pretty cool psychological, philosophical conversation to have. And I think we should have a couple of students on in another show to talk about what they define as freedom. Because to me, freedom is being able to do what you want and, pursue what makes you happy. The
I
pursuit
agree.
of happiness.
I agree. I think that we should leave the show tonight with this, which is if you're listening, obviously comment, tell us what you think. I can put the survey out for you guys if you want to test yourselves, although the answers are already in the show. But let's just think for this in a second. What does freedom mean to you? And does this country get in the way of that type of freedom? Because freedom's a very personal subject. And one of the reasons that I like the Human Freedom Index from CATO is that they take a whole array of things. And I respect Freedom House to say that, what life is like on the ground is not what it's like on paper. And that's very important. But what freedom means to each individual is so vast and far between that we can't quantify it, So
Which I think that's a
this is the
new
best we can do.
concept too, to be totally honest.
What, trying to quantify freedom?
Yeah. I think that freedom was more a together concept than it is now. Like we talk about the new trends and, things like that. I think that it's not like brand new, but it's newer. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
I personally think freedom, do you wherever you want to be done. As long as you're not bothering me, killing nobody, that's how I feel. And I think that for the most part, besides big government issues that we have in this country, which I think we need to turn around, you can do you wherever you want to be done.
Been fun talking with you guys again.
Love calling out controversy with you guys.
Yeah, follow us on Instagram, follow us on YouTube, check out our pages, and please email us, callingoutcontroversy@gmail.com, YouTube comments, Instagram follows. Like, we're doing it for the clout, really.
Absolutely.
This has been WVCR 88.3 FM, The Saint.